Howdy. It's about that time, ladies and gentlemen. Skirk has finally made her debut and will officially be playable in just a few days. That is assuming you didn't just click on this video after you pulled Skirk. In any case, I have all the information you'll need. If you look down below, you will see the timestamps available for this video. These checkpoints will list key information such as talent priority, artifact stats, main stats, substats, weapons, team comps, her pros and cons, as well as a general review on the character. Because while Skirk is one of the most powerful characters in Genshin, she does have a very long list of flaws that you should be aware of if you're going to pull her. If that all sounds useful, go ahead and like the video, because the production of this was a nightmare. Or hell, even subscribe if you're interested in analytical content on your favorite gacha game. With that all being said, let's begin with the basic overview. Skirk is a cryo-dependent, cryo-DPS character who can also be played in the sub-DPS role. She essentially plays as what can be summed down to a more restrictive Knitch, except cryo. Whereas Knitch wants to exist on a team with other pyro characters to make use of his elemental reactions in order to deal nukes, Skirk just wants to exist on the team with other elements in general, the specific elements being cryo and hydro, meaning she is a very restrictive yet unrestrictive character. Because at the end of the day, Skirk will be doing decent damage as long as she's on a team with other hydro and cryo characters. The moment you add some pyro into the mix, you're gonna notice some cliff dives. We'll take that into consideration when we talk about her teams, but for now, let's go over talent priority. Once again, the trend follows true. The auto attack is basically useless. You are free to level up if you want to, but a majority of your damage will be coming from your skill. Make sure to crown that one first. And if you're going to use her in sub-DPS gameplay, make sure you also consider getting her elemental burst up to 9. If you really like the character and want to push the most you can out of her, then consider crowning the burst as well. As for artifacts, Skirk is one of the biggest it depends scenarios in all of Genshin Impact history. As it currently stands, her two best options are somewhat wishy-washy between Deep Galleries or the Meretruse Hunters. Hunters is the easier of the two to build, allowing you to stack an insane amount of crit rate. Its only caveat being, it's only a viable option if you have Farina, but as we discussed earlier, due to Skirk's heavily restrictive team comps, you're pretty much always going to want to run Skirk with Farina, and if that's the case, then go ahead and put Hunters on her. However, if you're going for high levels of investment over a very long period of time, or if you quite simply don't have Farina, it would be better for you to pull the Deep Gallery set and place it on your Skirk. While it doesn't have the same ease of use, it will outscale Hunter set as it currently stands in high level investment teams. If you really don't have any other options, then I would consider Blizzard Strayer as a holdover set. Rip it off of your Ganyu or Ayaka if you have to. That being said, it is worth noting that if you do have Farina, it is very much worth it to farm the Hunter set, as you will gain the Hunter set, which you can put on your Skirk, and then you will also be able to farm Golden Troop, which you can put on Farina and Escoffier, who are the best in slot characters for this team. So for those of you who are newer to the game and you don't have your foot under you yet, and you somehow manage to get Skirk and or Escoffier, this is the one you want to farm, especially considering Farina is on track for a rerun very soon. As for the main stats and substats, it's really basic DPS core. You're going to want to stack attack percent, crit rate, and crit damage, though it is worth noting the energy recharge is effectively entirely useless on Skirk due to the fact that her bursts work similarly to Mavwikas. Now for Skirk's weapons. While it is worth noting that Skirk does have a very powerful SIG that really nothing else can compare, that doesn't mean there aren't other options. For example, if you aren't overcapping on crit rate, the Jade Sword is pretty decent. However, it's basically only useful if you're running on Deep Galleries due to the fact it kinda gives you an insane amount of crit rate to begin with, which makes it very hard to build around. If that's not your style, then you can use the Haron or the Mist Splitter if you absolutely have to. For 4-star options, you can consider Finale of the Deep, Calamity of Anshu, or really any 4-star crit sword, such as the Black Sword or, unfortunately, the Black Cliff series. While it is worth noting that these options are viable to an extent, they will not get you anywhere near the same level of output as the 5-star options, so do take that into consideration before you begin building them. That being said, we need to speak about vertical investment because I do feel like it's very important on Skirk. As it currently stands, outside of C0, if you want to level up your Skirk gameplay, you are going to want to go for Escoffier first, then Farina C1, and then Skirk's R1. That being said, I do feel like the difference between Farina C1 and Skirk's R1 is not that big, take, so if you want the drip check on Skirk, then go ahead and get her signature weapon instead. From that point onwards, the next level would be Escoffier's signature weapon, Escoffier C1, Skirk C1, and then Farina C2. If this sounds very expensive for you, then just consider getting Farina C2 after you get Skirk's weapon, and you'll be good to go. Mostly due to the fact that Farina C2 is just incredibly versatile if you want to go for a value pull. As it currently stands, Skirk's best in slot team is going to be Skirk, Escoffier, Farina in that order, and then some sort of flex spot. As it currently stands, I do think either Shenhe or Mona are going to be the best choice, but you can also go for Setlali on TTDS with Hero of Cinder Cities, Mulanni on TTDS just to exist, and of course Yelan on something like Elegy, who can buff the team with her passive talents. If you don't have any other options, you could throw something like Jingshou on the team, or Ayaka as a sub DPS, or Barbara on TTDS, or hell, even Neuvillette on TTDS. That all being said, they're definitely not meta options, and I would really stick to either Shenhe, Mona, Setlali, Yelan, and then go from there. That all being said, we definitely need to talk about the elephant in the room. I've referenced it twice up at this point, and I'm sure some of you have noticed. Skirk basically loses out a ton of her DPS if you do not play her with Escoffier. Now, a lot of people would tell you that Skirk is borderline useless if she doesn't have Escoffier, and I do think that opinion is a little overblown. As it currently stands, from pre-release calculations, Skirk without Escoffier is doing around 85,000 DPS, which is 30k above what you need in order to clear the Spiral Abyss comfortably. This is of course assuming you have Farina. Now, if you manage to get Escoffier and put her on the same team as Skirk, you're gonna see about a 20 to 30% DPS increase for the entire team. While it's not doubling your damage like everybody else says, it is a massive increase that is totally worth noting when you are talking about the character, because if you do not have her, you are essentially kneecapping yourself. This is a new trend that I've noticed in a lot of gacha games that I will refer to as luxury locking, where a limited time 5-star needs another limited time 5-star in order to function at their fullest capacity. We saw this happen with Mavuika, and the results are about the same, because if you manage to get the two of them on one team, you will be seeing Mavuika comparable DPS. Now, do I think she's as good as Mavuika? No, I don't, because Mavuika can support the team and her DPS is higher, but Skirk comes really close if you manage to get her Exodia put together. And unfortunately, the same thing can be said about Farina. While admittedly she's not as big of a loss as Escoffier with a total 9% overall team comp damage increase, it is still something that should be worth noting when you're going for the character. If you're newer to Genshin and you don't have these characters, you are not going to see anywhere near the DPS these other characters are putting out. Does that mean she's trash? No, I don't think so. But I definitely feel like she opens up the door to have this kind of conversation later on. So overall, for the TLDR, for those who didn't listen, Skirk is a very powerful character, even without Escoffier and Farina. That being said, she is a very restrictive character, and if you do not have these characters, there aren't that many other options you can slot her onto the team. One way or another, she will be able to clear Spiral Abyss with relative ease, though it is worth noting that she will have more difficulty if you aren't willing to put in the investment. Finally, we need to talk about power creep. There is mutterings and mumblings that Skirk is not worth pulling because she will get power crept very quickly, as we are on the cusp of Shesnaya. However, it is worth noting that Nodcry is going to be coming out instead of Shesnaya, and it is not a cryo-focused region. In addition to that, cryo is in a state where it is obviously getting buffed. It is finally getting some attention. It is highly likely that for the next few abysses, you are going to want to bring in some sort of cryo character, and Skirk, as it currently stands, is the best option in this scenario. And even if we go to Shesnaya very soon, or if Nodcry is cryo-based and we get a new powerful cryo DPS, I highly doubt they are going to be that much stronger than Skirk. We've seen this with Mavuika and Arlecchino. Arlecchino is still able to easily clear the Spiral Abyss. Just because Mavuika has some of the highest DPS in the game doesn't mean that it renders your Arlecchino to dust. You can still bring her in and clear with relative ease. So I really wouldn't worry about it. At the end of the day, all DPSs are going to get power creep eventually. You just need to ask yourself the question, do I like the character? Yes. Do I think the character is fun? Yes. Well, then pull the character. It just so happens that this character is incredibly strong, and she opens up the door to a broader conversation that needs to be had sometime soon. With that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you you like the video, like. If you dislike it, dislike it. And if you really like me, go ahead and subscribe for more analytical gacha gaming content. That all being said, I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and peace.